Hi, everyone. I'm so excited that you're here. My name is Lacey. My pronouns are she and hers. I am here in beautiful, wild, wonderful West Virginia. And I am a stress management coach who works with people that are in the political space as organizers or volunteers or candidates. And the reason I am so passionate about this work is that I have worked on campaigns for 18 years, but the 2010 midterm election almost broke me. Like mind, body, spirit, everything. So I got so stressed out, so burned out that I made myself super sick, and I had to actually go on disability for a year. I had to move back home. I had to go in for monthly infusions for 12 months. And then once my immune system got itself sorted out, which it finally did, I got right back on the trail for 2012. And what that experience taught me is that if we want our movement, our campaigns, the goals that we're working towards to be sustainable, we as political people need to learn how to take better care of ourselves. We take care of everybody else. We take care of all the problems in the world, and we leave what's left for us. And we need to think about ways to work those things in with each other so that we're not putting ourselves last. We're not working ourselves literally into the ground. So that's a little bit about me and why I do this work. So Reggie, let's kick it over to you.
Lacey, happy to be here. Blessings to all who are here. And it says 85 people in the chat, but my computer may be hella slow. I only see 7 people. So the rest of y'all, please announce yourselves because I'm delighted to have you here. I have, similar to Lacey, like I've done campaigns and politics the wrong way and the right way. I've been in this game for way too long. Some might say, so 20 years or so. And the first 10 years of my career, and mostly like a presidential, senatorial, or congressional level. So like in total me fashion, I don't do anything half-ass. As one of my teachers, like, you are whole ass. So like, so in that spirit, like I did the 2004 presidential campaign and a governor's race in Florida on the back end of a sabbatical in Rio de Janeiro. So when I left Rio, I was like sun-kissed and beautiful and Afro-listic and all the things. But after the John Kerry campaign and then the governor's race in Florida, y'all, I put on 80 pounds and went from 230 in like my best life. And it's not even about weight. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about quality of life. So I went from like Rio de Janeiro, 230, sun-kissed and beautiful, to ashen, overweight, destroyed, and I would drink bourbon and smoke cigarettes for breakfast and curse everyone out because, like, if you're miserable, why the fuck shouldn't everyone else be miserable, right? So like I did that for the first half of my political career, and then luckily in 2014 started practicing yoga and started practicing meditation, like as a discipline, not as some stuff that you do once a month and thinking that you want some shit, but like I do it every day. And that became so powerful for me that I now teach, and most notoriously have taught Deb Haaland, have taught Rashida Tlaib, have taught Ilhan Omar and their staffs, and other members too, Christine Pelosi, like have taught them during the pandemic, but also in other ways. Netroots, I've been here for 4 years, teaching us basic opportunities to take better care of ourselves in the spirit of Audre Lorde, because like Audre Lorde talks about self-care as being self-preservation, not indulgence. And if it's self-preservation, that's an act of political warfare, So like when you go to war, like you want to have like the best or peace, like and for those of you who don't like war language, sometimes peace, you've got to have like a warlike mentality, right? You have to take the name of my teaching practice is called Active Peace, because you have to like take better care of yourself and then take that well-being into the midst of crazy circumstances in order to bend them to your will. So like that's like some Zen master stuff. I teach a lot now. So active peace yoga. I've taught major Buddhist centers, members of Congress. Most recently, like someone in the White House was like, Reggie, you need to teach me about this meditation thing. And I'm like, cool. So delightful to be here in community because y'all, we as a movement are beautiful, good people with horrible habits. Great hearts, shit habits. And what we hope to do today is give you better habits to match up with your great hearts and brilliant minds so that you can be unstoppable. Lacey, back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought that up because I actually had that in my notes that I wanted to bring up because I've heard you say it before. And so we're going to go ahead and kick things off with a short breath work practice because breath work is one of those things that can really help us. Real quick before that, I like to do a community agreements in trainings that I lead. It's a little different in the online space. So really the only thing that I have is just be kind, be respectful in the chat. Please ask any questions that you might have. We're going to have a time at the end that is specifically saved for questions. So if we don't answer it right away, I'll come back to it in the question part. But yeah, ask any questions you might have in the moment and be respectful to each other. So with that, Reggie, will you lead us in a breathwork practice?
Absolutely. So delightful to, again, be able to share. So my birthday was Tuesday. I turned 47. Number one, I can't believe I'm that old. Number two, I'm glad to be that old, considering that like from 25 through 35, my goal in life was to see if I could run myself into the ground faster each year, right? So my late 20s and early 30s were pretty self-destructive. What I've learned over the course of like the past several years, though, is that when you take care of the body is programmed for sustenance and resilience, right? So the body is designed to take care of itself. We're the ones that want to pretend like that doesn't even happen. And the best way you can take care of yourself, especially in the work that we do, is to be mindful of the breath. Like if the coronavirus has taught us anything, it has taught us that you can't take the breath for granted and you can't take community for granted, right? So what we're going to do for the next couple minutes or so, for those of you who say, I can't meditate, I can't sit still, I don't even want you to sit still. I just want you to take a deeper breath because odds are you have been like this for hours, maybe not today, but over the course of the past several days. And the only people that should be like this are the undead or people who maybe were in Michael Jackson's Thriller video or something like that. This is not healthy. So first things first, shoulders back and down as a matter of course, right? So just shoulders on the inhale come up and back and down. What we're doing is opening the chest cavity to receive a deeper breath. Like if you tried to take a deep breath like this, you might suffocate, right? So we're opening the chest. And maybe if you want to give a tribute to a R&B diva, you take one shoulder then the other. Gotta have fun when you're taking care of yourself. Now
also, if you're hearing things pop and crack as you do this, you're not alone. So
yeah, that's because the body's like, oh shit, they're serious. Like we're actually moving, right? So like when things pop and crack, especially in the shoulders and the wrist, that's synovial fluid, which is the lubricant for like our joints. That allows us to do stuff like this without it being hurt, right? So anyway, shoulders back and down. Instead of having the chin forward, take the chin back, have the shoulders over the ears. Long neck though. Soften or close the eyes and allow ambient sound to be there. Just notice it. Don't try and tune it out. We want everything to be brought in. And just notice how you feel after that shoulder exercise. We'll do a deeper practice on the back end. I'll show you some tricks of the trade that I've taught members of Congress and other folks. But based on that shoulder exercise, how do you feel? And with eyes soft or closed, take a deep inhale through the nose. I'll count at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale out the mouth. 4 more like that. Inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause and hold. Exhale out the mouth. 3 more. Inhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause and hold. Exhale out the mouth. Now let's make it kind of silly. Inhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause and hold. Exhale, flutter the lips. Like a raspberry. So Prince is over my shoulder. So raspberry beret. But also it gets stress out of the lips, right? So last one. Inhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause and hold. Exhale, flutter the lips. Now for the next 30 seconds or so, notice what has shifted, and all we did was breathe deep, close our eyes, and flutter our lips. Remind the mind the next time is like, I'm too busy. How awesome you feel right now and how easy it was. When ready, bring hands together at heart center. Rub the palms together pretty vigorously, create some friction. And now place the palms over the eyes. Massage the eyes. Thank them for their service. And then when ready, cup the hands over the eyes. Open the eyes into the hands. Lower the hands. So that's what we got. Dear friends in the chat, let us know how that exercise sat with you.
Yeah, you want an interesting nervous system reset. Try blowing raspberries with your eyes closed while other people are on the chat.
Nice.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when Reggie and I were talking about this training, we were kind of talking about the different kinds of stress that we have encountered in our years of working on campaigns, working with politicians, doing all of the crisis management, everything that is involved. And I've kind of put things into 2 buckets where there is acute stress, which is those things that happen that our heart rate speeds up, our breathing increases, we might get a little sick to our stomach, like the things like a bad flake rate or a key vote backs out of an agreement that you thought was solid, or a list of low turnout Dems turns out to actually be abusive MAGA voters, which I know is something a lot of us dealt with in 2020. So those are acute stressors because they're quick. Our stress response kicks in, our autonomic nervous system takes over. We go into that fight, flight, freeze mode, and then it's over. We re-regulate ourselves and we move on. With campaigns, the other type of stress that we have is that chronic stress. So that's when these acute stressors hit us back to back to back to back to back. We never get back to our regulated state. They build up and we just feel like a mess. So I thought for the first part of the training, we could talk about some of the acute stressors and things that we do to hack that stress response. So when we feel our breathing get tight and quick, when we feel our heart rate start to go faster, we can introduce these things to sort of say, hey, it's okay. This isn't actually a threat. Like there's no predator that's chasing us. And breathing is one of the really key elements that comes to dealing with those acute stresses. because it's the one bodily function that we can actually control with our minds. It's like the only thing that we can tell our body, hey, I want to change this thing that I'm doing and do it in a different way.
Mhm.
So that's why we wanted to start with a breathing exercise. Reggie, what are some of the other practices that you like to do when you're faced with your body telling yourself there is a threat that is not
Yeah.
actually a threat?
Yeah, so part of it, unpacking what we did in the practice just now, part of it is my posture, right? So if I've been like this on Zoom all day, I used to work for Move On. For those of you who do not know anything about me, I was Move On's Congressional Affairs Director from 2017 through 2021. So that's like the Trump era. So you want to talk about like automatic stress response, that it's not incidental that I became like yogic practitioner and like Buddhist practitioner during the Trump era. But I would find myself often like this, and then wondering like why I felt bad or like why I would respond a certain way. And so I would just check my posture, right? So like rather than be like this, shoulders are back and down, maybe do that little sassy Beyonce tribute thing. That's one thing I would do. Number two, impromptu dance parties are all that. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason why Prince is always in my shot. You know what I mean? Like Prince and creative music, and like taking like a 2 or 3 minute opportunity just to get up and just be, shifts the mindset. So basically getting out of your head, getting into the body, and getting into the breath. So spontaneous dance parties were key for me. Or I'm also like the king of spontaneous karaoke, but anything to like shake up the mood, to get you out of that, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Because guess what? You stressing yourself to death about something isn't gonna make it any less stressful. But you can shift your perspective on how you receive the information, and then use that perspective shift to be more dominant.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't actually remember what campaign it was now, but one of my favorite campaigns, we would always kick off a canvas by turning on a song and dancing around the office to it. And we were just sort of like, this is a way to get our energy pumped. And it was, but it was also a way to like discharge some of that nervous energy, especially for people who were new to canvassing, who hadn't done it before. Just to be like, oh, hey, I know how to move, I know how to walk, and I do know how to talk to people. So this is going to be fine. Um, I did really want to turn on a song during this presentation and actually do a dance party. And unfortunately, I couldn't figure out how to make the technology work.
Mm.
So I had Prince like queued up on my Spotify just for you. Just
Always.
actually for all of us. It would have
uh,
been for all of us, y'all.
I appreciate that.
So, um, so movement, breathing, one of the things that I really like to do is to start bringing more mindful moments into your day.
Hmm.
Um, so the reasons that we get stressed, there are a lot of reasons that we get stressed, but most often it has to do with something in the future that we are worried that is going to happen, or something in the past that maybe didn't go exactly as we wanted it to. And so we're just sort of consumed with what we could have done better. So, what a mindfulness practice does is it brings us into the present moment. And at the present moment, unless you are being chased by a lion or unless the house is literally on fire around you, there is nothing threatening you in this space in this moment. So, things like the one I bring into all of my coaching is really getting into your morning coffee routine or whatever beverage you choose to do in the morning, and just bringing all five senses online and paying attention to what does it really smell like when it starts to brew? What does it sound like? If you use cream, what does it look like as it swirls into the coffee? And it sounds a little extra maybe as I'm explaining it, but it really just gives me that pause. And the science behind it is that it's actually linking two parts of your brain that are, it's the more logical part of your brain. So it's not the part that reacts in times of acute stressors, which is the one that's going, okay, we need to get ready to run away or curl into a little ball. But it's the one that says, hey, we've been through this before. It's going to be okay. So those mindful moments, it can be your morning coffee, it could be taking a walk around the block, it could be brushing your teeth, any of those things that you do every single day already, just bringing awareness into it and really paying attention. So maybe not turning on your first news podcast until after you've gotten ready for the day, or not having the news on in the background. It's usually the news that is distressing me in the morning. So being aware of what's going on that is not out there on the internet, on the television, that really helps me, because it helps me find those moments throughout the day when I can feel my heart rate speed up, my breathing quicken, my stomach get upset. So what else? What else
Yes,
helps you
yeah,
to
something I'll offer on the mindfulness, because for better or for worse, I'm in a 2-year mindfulness training, is that y'all look, one of the mantra that I use all the time is just because things are crazy externally doesn't mean that I have to be crazy internally. I'll say that again for y'all in the back. Like, just because things are crazy externally doesn't mean that you have to be crazy internally. Real talk. What happens outside of you, to some extent, has nothing to do with you. And here's what I mean by that. Like, in the same way that we can control the breath, we can control our response to situations. So I'll give you a perfect example. So when Rashida Tlaib was like, we're going to go in and impeach the motherfucker, like, that was my party. Like, that came out of my budget. I had to get into arguments with my former colleagues in order to make this party happen. So you can imagine that, at least for like a hot second, my acute stress response was like, oh my God, right? Like, that totally just happened. So this is what ended up happening, though. So Rashida, who I love, like we all do, like she's one of my homegirls, and in fact, I need to send her a text message because every time I see a rainbow, I send it to her, because that's just an agreement that we have. But she says that, and I'm the MC, right? So the next time, if y'all ever want to look and have a laugh, like, this side of my face is the one that's on the camera during the clip. So like, if you see a taller dude with like a beard pointing out, that's me. So like, but watch my response in the context of what we're talking about here, because like the next day, one of my friends was like, man, he called me from Scotland. He was like, Reggie, like, I saw you. I was like, yo, you're just the UK contingent of the global phone calls I got today of people who saw me break the internet. So I say, no. Like, I watched you the entire time. Like, Rashida said what she said. You took a deep breath, put your shoulders back, took an inhale through your nose, exhale out your nose. Then you took the mic, whispered something in her ear, and kept it moving. That is what consistent practice does. That is what, like, learning, because the other thing I'll offer too is that we tend to demonize stress. Stress is energy. That's it. So that energy can be used to propel you, or it can be used to inhibit you. You know, like, you need to learn some Jedi mind tricks to some extent on yourself. But like, what all stress is energy. It's data. And it's data of what you are experiencing, what you think you're experiencing. And so what mindfulness does is it filters out what's really happening with what you think is happening, and it allows you to choose wise action on what is actually happening, as opposed to freaking out. Because what I could have done on the impeach the MF moment was been like, oh, I totally could have been like that. I could have just like walked off the stage and walked out the doors like, oh shit, like, this is my first day on the job, I'm about to get fired. Like, I totally could have had that response. But instead, I was just like, okay, that just happened. And now that that's happened, what can I do? And for those who pay attention to history, that was the catalyst that got that dude impeached. But anyway, I digress. So I just wanted to offer that in mindfulness. And the last thing I'll say, y'all, is that it has never been more important to be grounded. Not in the sense of like as a parent, you're in trouble, but grounded in terms of just like, y'all, we live in super heady times, right? Whether it be the phone or everything's electronic, everything is digital. So like to some extent, we are trapped in our heads. We're trapped in air. We're trapped in a virtual space. It has never been more important, and I'll teach a practice on the back end about this, to feel your feet on the ground. Maybe even take off your shoes and put your feet on the ground. Because, and this is one of the meditations I taught last year during the pandemic, especially to my friends on the Hill. I was like, look, ain't nobody playing none of this shit, right? We ain't playing no pandemic. We ain't playing for no dude trying to sabotage the post office. We ain't playing for that. But here's what I know. I know that if I feel my feet on the ground, if I take a deep breath and the sun still rises in the east and sets in the west, something's going right. It may not be anything else, but if I feel my feet on the ground, am able to take a deeper breath, then tap into the resilience of the human experience, then that's what makes and made the past year and a half far more easier for me to navigate. So sometimes that can be as simple as like, instead of like being hunched over, like finding that tall seat that we talk about, picking one foot up, picking the other foot up, and then putting them on the ground. It can be also you cutting off your computer, going outside and walking on the ground. Or, we've got these phones, which are like super powerful. You can take your Zoom calls outside while standing barefoot on the ground, right? Like there's so many things that you can do to break up the monotony, number one, but number two, get you back in touch with Earth, get you out of your head and onto the ground. Because for me anyway, taking a short walk, or taking a walking meeting instead of going meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting in your computer, and then you're like, oh shit, how did I spend 6 hours here? Like taking one of those meetings while walking, getting some sunlight. So we are part of nature. To digress for a hot second, then I'll come back. I did an Instagram live earlier today with Lifeway Kiefer, and this one dude's like, what is this new age tomfoolery? I was like, homie, this is called spiritual and energetic hygiene. It's not called tomfoolery, right? So like when you can clear your mind and heal your body, then you can get to do about the work that we're doing. And so to backtrack a bit before we go forward, this is called put your oxygen mask on first, y'all, because look, we are great people with bad habits. And if we continue to have bad habits and then be surprised that we've got bad results, what is that? That's crazy, right? So coming into an awareness of our habits, using compassion for the habits that we have, and then using resilience to get new habits is how we can do better, not only for ourselves, but for our movements.
Yeah, so I'm curious if people will put it in the chat, like how many people actually get outside every day on purpose? Like, or even sit by a window on purpose? Because I will tell you that when I was telling you a little bit about why this is important for me, I said I got back on the trail in 2012. I went to North Dakota for Heidi Hike Camp's race. I worked in the back of a dentist's office that had 0 windows. I went to work when it was dark. I left work when it was dark. And I came back and surprise, I had a very severe vitamin D deficiency. And that can make you tired. It can make you irritable. It can do all of these things. And so taking care of our bodies, like Reggie said at the very beginning, can even be affected by just going outside and making sure that you get some sunlight at some point during the day. And it's important too, when we're talking about grounding, putting your feet on the floor is important. If you work in an environment where it's all high rises and apartment buildings and you're 30 feet in the air when you put your feet on the ground, try to go outside and actually put your feet on the solid ground for, 5-10 minutes a day and see how that helps. Because I can tell you it's one of the practices that has been the most settling to my nervous system, just to go outside for a little bit.
And then
So,
if you combine what you just offered, Lacey, with, so if you go outside, close your eyes, then take a deep breath. Oh my gosh. Like super simple, but it's as if the body is just like, yes, right? Like you remembered.
yeah, and I think that's the most important thing, and we're going to switch gears into chronic stress, but I mean, it all works together.
Hmm.
The most important thing for us as political people is to get out of our heads. And so Reggie and I are both yoga teachers. I connected with him through him teaching yoga at Netroots a couple of years ago. Um, and I it just makes such a big difference just to give ourselves that space, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's an hour, whatever time you have to give, to get yourself out of your head and into your body and to pay attention to what your body is telling you. Because your body is going to tell you when you're getting to that really fine line of when you need to rest before it throws you over the edge and makes you rest. So
Right.
learning to pay attention to those is really great. Um,
Yeah, one quick thing I'll offer, Lacey, is that like you glossed over it and you mentioned it in your opening, but yo, like we've all been there, right? So like if you don't rest, the body at some point will revolt, right? So it's better to be purposeful and rest along the way and take care of yourself, or like put your oxygen mask on or whatever you want to call it along the way, because the body will. And I like when I worked on presidential campaigns back after like back to back to back to back, there was one time, so after the John Kerry race, like I couldn't leave my bed for 6 months. Part of it was depression, like part of it was just exhaustion, and part of it was like all those little sicknesses that were like that. Once I was like didn't have any like adrenaline or all the other thing, the sicknesses were just like, okay, you've been ignoring us for how long? Like it's our time now. And I was like laid out for 6 months. So like we don't have to view health in the context of a feast or famine situation. We can take care of ourselves along the way. And in so doing, keep ourselves from the boom and bust cycles that are actually quite depleting.
yeah. And I love in a lot of the comments that people threw in about getting outside that you have to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
Because intentional is another word for mindful, is another word for being aware, is another word to just paying attention to what you're doing with your time, with your energy, with your life as you try to make life better for other people. And so I think that's really important for us as political people to understand that, like, we are just as worthy of care and support as the people that we are working to change things for. So we can't be these sacrificial lambs and say, well, I'm going to work myself to death so that other people can have whatever issue you're working on. So, yeah, intention is great. And that's oftentimes the first step to actually doing the thing to take care of yourself. So, keep that up. Um, let's switch gears into how we deal with chronic stress.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said in the beginning, chronic stress is when it's kind of built up in our system, when we might feel the burnout coming, we might feel that 6 months in bed or the immune system or whatever start to flare. Um, our brains are ultimately resilient. So once you start dealing with stress in the moment in a healthier way, your brain gets used to dealing with it in that way, and the chronic stress can lessen over time. But even if we start today dealing with that acute stress in a healthier way, we still got to deal with all of the stress that we've accumulated over the past however many years. So, what are some of the long term practices that have been helpful to you when it comes to? I think we both call ourselves recovering political operatives now.
Hmm. Well, one is that, and I'll say this first before I say anything else. If you don't sleep well, what are you doing? Like, y'all hear me. Rest is productive. Repeat, rest is productive. I'll say it again for those in the back. Rest is productive. And I repeat that because for whatever reason, there's a masochistic tendency in activist spaces to like either celebrate how much you didn't sleep or how shitty you ate or how many cups of coffee that you had. So coffee is essential to some extent, but 7 cups of coffee, yo, like take your ass to bed. You know what I mean? Like, like rather than like there are times when you need to burn the candle at both ends. Sure. Especially GOTV, tight races, those sorts of things. I'm not saying don't do that. But what I'm saying is that like 7 months out, you don't need to be doing that. Right. So that's one thing I would say is sleep. The other thing I'll say that goes along with sleep is hydration. Right. So when you do not hydrate, so look, I constantly have water at my side. This is a 1 liter, 1.5 liter water. I try and drink 3 or 4 of these per day. It's annoying because I have to constantly go to the bathroom, but I'd rather be annoyed at constantly going to the bathroom than to have renal failure.
You know what also happens when you have to use the bathroom all that time is that you're moving your body.
Right.
So you don't have to set up a time every hour to walk around the office to stretch. You have to get up.
Mm-hmm.
So, same. Hydration is key.
What about you?
Yeah, so I blame a lot of the bad habits that I first picked up when I started working on campaigns on the West Wing. Which people of a certain age in this room might get.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty
But
great.
yeah, I think the first thing I really worked into my everyday life was my yoga practice.
Yeah.
Because like you, that was what sort of brought about awareness of all these other things. But the next thing I did was being more aware of what I was eating. And it's not a weight thing. It's not a eating this is good for you, eating that is bad for you. It's that I needed to eat during the day. So I was just getting through the entire day on coffee, water, cigarettes, and that was it. So I started being more aware. And I think the first thing I brought into a campaign office to help me with this was a toaster.
Nice.
So I brought a toaster into a campaign office so that I could have, an English muffin in the morning. I could make grilled cheese in it. I could, like I said, it's not about eating healthily, it's about eating at all. So becoming aware of that, and then that's something that I work with clients and on campaigns that I'm working with now to say, are you making sure that your organizers have time to eat?
Yeah.
Are you making sure your organizers have time each week to go grocery shopping? Like, are you supporting these things? Because if your organizers are working from 7 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, and then the grocery store closes at 7, what are they going to do? They're going to be eating from the convenience stores. They're going to be doing takeout all the time. And it's not necessarily good for their body or their mind. So,
Or their wallet.
or their wallet. Yeah, exactly. So, um, food is one of the things for me, my yoga practice. Um, and then just keeping a reminder of why I'm doing the work that I'm doing and making sure that it's like it's right over my computer. Like it reminds me that the work might be hard, I might be tired, but I'm doing it because it's aligning with my values. And if I find that at some time one of my values is being broken because of the way that I'm working, the way that I am showing up in my space, then that's on me to fix. And so, one of my values is finding joy in every day. And so if I am just focused on my computer, hunched over, talking to people on the internet all day, talking at people on the internet all day, I'm not finding a joyful life. So I need to go downstairs and pet my dog, or I need to go outside and get the sunshine that I know I need. So yeah, keeping my values in mind is another important one for me.
Another thing I'll offer in terms of like personal practices, so yoga and meditation, but also I play a lot of. If y'all look over my shoulder, like I have all these Tibetan sound bowls. So like my gift to myself for resigning from Move On and helping impeach the president and end the fascist regime was I gave myself the gift of ancient singing bowls. Why? We have so much noise in our life, whether it be like chatter or the news or all these sorts of things, that even a minute and a half, 2 minutes of pure sound clears the mind. And that helps you sleep, that helps you do all these things, right? So sound for me, in addition to yoga, meditation, walking outside, I regularly close. So that thing that we did with the eyes, I regularly do that. One, because I'm older than most of y'all. Like number two is that eyes are essential personnel, y'all. Right? So like fingers in a digitally organized where that's prime, your fingers, your eyes, and your posture should be the things that you care about the most, not that you care about the least, right? So just like that subtle shift will allow you to have not only a better quality, because there will be times where you have to sit for hours, but rather than sit like this, can you sit like this? Or can you get a standing desk? Or can you, like, there's so many things that you can do to make your work and quality of work better. And Trisha, the one thing I would offer is that like rest is, so being not productive in a capitalistic sense is probably sometimes the best way you can be productive, right? So I've been on travel for the past 2 weeks. In the past 2 days, you know what I've done? Woke up whenever, play singing bowls, drink hella water, take naps. And now I feel great. But it's because I basically was like, look, I'm not going to be quote unquote, someone's like, you need to get in touch. I was like, you need to holler at me when I holler back at you, right? Like, so stop it, right? So I applaud what you said in terms of not being productive every single minute, but also wanted to add that we can be productive by being not productive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're at the point where I want to pivot to the closing and the Q&A and wrap up and all that stuff. But one thing that there were a couple of comments about, fighting for workers' rights and then
Yeah.
seeing our people burn out, figuring out how to compensate organizers. Self-care, I mean, in the phrase, it says self, right? So it's a very me, I, action-oriented thing. However, if you are in a position where you're a campaign manager or you are in leadership of an organization or any position where you have people who work for you, it is also important for you to take responsibility of the people who are underneath you and making sure that they know that it is okay for them to rest. They know that it's okay for them to have the time. They know that, that how do I want to say this? You know the importance of them taking care of themselves and you want them to do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I was having a conversation with my book club recently, and we were talking about the recycling, personal responsibility versus corporate responsibility when it comes to environmental issues and all of that. And it got me thinking about self-care in the same terms, where yes, we need to do our own due diligence and making sure that we are taking care of each other or taking care of ourselves. And also, if we are in the position to make sure that the people who work for us are taking care of themselves, we need to destigmatize that and start talking about it. And I have seen a lot of trainings and panels at Netroots this year that are talking about taking self-care, that are talking about things like this. Like I just did a awesome crisis management panel that was talking about like, is this actually a crisis that I need to be concerned with? If it's not, let it go. So I think more and more organizers, more and more organizations are talking about this. I'm so happy everybody that is here is interested in this. And I just want to make sure that we are passing the ball to other people that couldn't be here or might not know how to take care of themselves yet. So
Yeah, one quick thing I'll offer, like super quick, is that when I was one of Bernie Sanders' producers of the 2015-2016 experience, I would have 15-minute meetings.
Mhm.
I would go around the horn. I would send an email and be like, be prepared to talk about this. And then I would go and be like, so Lacey, what do you have to say? Abby, what do you have to say? Doug, Tricia, like what? And then at the end of it, I would be like, so we're cool? All right. And then I would break the meeting. So as a leader, I modeled, and I would also be like, here's another reason why this meeting is so short. I'm going to go meditate because like this shit is stressing me out. And so like, I'm going to go meditate. We're going to talk for 15 minutes, make sure we're all up to speed. Then I'm going to go meditate and I'll holler at you later. So what that did for me is showed my team that I took this seriously, and it demonstrated through example how to do it.
Perfect. Well, and that's a perfect segue because we're going to do a short meditation now. I just want to let you all know, because we're coming up in like 10 minutes. At the end, there is going to be a slide that gives you all our handles on Instagram, because that's where we hang out the most right now. Also, feel free to add us as connections through the Netroots app if you have any questions that don't get answered, if we don't have time for as many questions as we were hoping. But yeah, with that said, Reggie, you wanna lead us in a meditation?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And first thing I'll say is like, wherever you are, we talked about this, stand up. So we've been seated for 50 minutes, stand up if you can. If you cannot stand, then basically just give yourself some motion that breaks up the monotony of what we were just going through, right? So maybe you swing from side to side, maybe you go from side to side. For those that are able, maybe you bring legs up, maybe you wiggle and shake. But bringing into practice what we talked about, breaking up the monotony. And now that we've broken up the monotony, let's get our shoulders back and down again. Proud chest, chin back, ears over shoulders. Deep inhale through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. 3 more like that. Deep in through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. Last 2 are raspberries. You knew this was coming. In through the nose. Exhale. In through the nose. Exhale. And now simply, to whatever depth is comfortable for you, breathe in through the nose, exhale out the nose or the mouth with shoulders back and down. And whatever has resonated with you over the course of our time together, I want you to daydream on that. So we talked a lot about like unproductive time. Sometimes in meditation, people think you have to have an agenda. In this meditation, I just want the mind to be free. Because as organizers, as change makers, sometimes the best thoughts that we have come from unstructured time. The things that land in our conscious land without planning necessarily. So with deep breath, proper alignment, and a softening of the body with each exhale, allow the mind to wander. Maybe the hydration meme resonated with you. Maybe walking outside resonated with you. But whatever has resonated with you, allow the mind to focus on that. So that the mind can become an ally in the nurturance of your well-being as opposed to an accidental adversary. The mind goes in the way that we train it. So for the next 30 seconds or so, train the mind to be free and open without apology. The work that we do is important, so why shouldn't the workers be important? Meaning you. Three clearing breaths in conclusion, and then we'll open it up for questions. Deep inhale through the nose. Exhale as you will. Out the mouth, out the nose, or raspberry, your call. Into the nose. Exhale, clear. Last in. Exhale, clear. I bow before each of you and thank you for listening to what I've had to offer. And we now would love to hear what you have to offer.
So if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. You may have just blissed everyone out.
I'll take it.
Their minds are so relaxed, they have no questions.
I'll take that too.
I would love to have an entire group of political people that are just.
Yeah, I'm tired of being the only one.
All right. Marjorie says, it's not about healthy food. Okay. And she challenges us to value healthful food as critical to our well-being. Yes, I do agree with that. I do agree with that. Let's see. Pam, you're asking how to incorporate. Which part would you like to have a little more guidance on incorporating? Let us know in that.
Yeah, one quick thing about Marjorie's thing. Marjorie, like when you have bad habits everywhere, it's like if all you do is drink coffee and not eat, like sometimes before we worry about the quality, we have to establish the habit. So I think what Lacey was going for is that like it's like you need to get into the habit of eating during the day. So yes, of course, healthy matters, but when you've got bad habits, sometimes like doing the most will not affect anything. So you can improve a better habit, but like you can't improve a bad habit.
Yeah. See. Doug, thank you for your question. Hello. Doug and I used to work together.
Nice.
Says tips on consuming news without breaking our brains. And I think he may have asked this because he knows that I've been working on a program for this. So yes, that is still in production. But Reggie, do you have any just quick tips on that?
So I'll combine all of those. So the last four things I'll combine. So we gave you some habits today. How do you incorporate them? You incorporate them by doing them. I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but like just take one of them and do it little by little, day by day. That's how things change. And in terms of the news, you know what my favorite thing to do is? Cut this off. You don't have to constantly consume the news, right? The best way to break your brain is to turn off the news. If you see a headline once, you don't have to keep reading and reading and reading. Like it involves a little bit about a discipline. And for Ariel, what I would say is that trauma and tragedy, this is what mindfulness has given me. Like I can be in the world and not be bothered by it. Right. So I can, and I'm saying this is a Black dude, right? So like, if I can be in the world, mindful, whole, and loving in this skin at this time, then anybody can do it. Right. So, yeah. And so Doug, I understand the stressors being activated most. So what's the best way to protect your mind? Don't activate the stressor as best that you can, or small doses as opposed to like it's consumption. Right. So if I eat a ton of cotton candy and get a headache, like maybe next time I don't eat so much.
Yeah. And it looks like we have a lot of questions that could use some deeper dives. And so I know for myself, since we only got 1 minute, you all can reach out to me on the Netroots app. I think it actually has like a chat feature now. So feel free to send any questions, messages my way for that. Reggie, what's the best way to get in touch with you if people have questions specifically for you?
Netroots app, Reggie Global on Instagram. And the one thing I'll say, Audrey, the best way that you can take care as a non-manager is to radically take care of your space. So if the organization isn't giving it to you, take it anyway. But never apologize for taking care of yourself.
Yeah, and I think that is a great note to end on. So thank you all so much. We really appreciate you taking the hour to come here. Remember that self-care is not selfish. Doing self-care is what makes us able to continue to do the work that we are doing. And so make sure that you take care of yourselves so that we can see you all in many Netroots to come. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy Netroots.